Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Crouch Hair Podcast. And today is going to be the second half of my mid-season reviews for the NFL. Today we're doing the NFC. In this one video we're doing the NFC. I just did the AFC, so I'm moving on to the next side. It's been a crazy year thus far, and this continues to get more and more wild. So. We're going to get into this one. Let's not waste any more time. We go and start with the number one team in the entire NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles, sitting atop the entire league at 8-1. The the Eagles are playing like one of the best teams in the NFL as well. They've been outstanding on offense. They're number in terms of total yards, number five in total yards. They're number in passing yards. They're top 10 in terms of rushing yards. I'm sure they're up there as well. Yep, they're also top 10. And then in terms of defense, they're uh, the number one rush defense in the entire league. Their pass defense is a little suspect. They're actually one of the worst pass defenses in the league, but their run defense is easily number one. The Eagles are playing like one of the best teams. The only thing that really concerns me has been their leaky secondary. Their secondary has not played amazing so far this year. And then the other thing that kind of sort of concerns me is they kind of just like the Bills. I was talking about this with the Bills in the AFC one. The Eagles are getting very cavalier with the football. They are turning it over a lot, and they've been giving it away way too much. I mean, they've turned it over. I think I think it was 15 turnovers for the Eagles this year. I mean, that's almost more than one a game. That's a lot of turnovers. And I mean, they're still 8-1. I think they're still going to easily win the NFC. I think they easily will. I think the Eagles could very easily end up being the team that comes out of the NFC, which is mostly kind of weak. But they can't be turning it over, that many times a game. That's not going to win you the Super Bowl. So they do need to work on that. But still, the Eagles are a absolutely fabulous team. And then the team behind them is pretty much just as good, and that's the Dallas Cowboys, sitting at 6-3. The only difference, really, I think, with Dallas from Philly is I'd say their defense is a little bit better, and maybe the Eagles have probably a better offense. Because Dallas, the difference with the Cowboys between the Cowboys and the Eagles is the Cowboys don't have a Jalen Hurts. They don't have someone like that. And also, the Cowboys don't have the most unstoppable play, apparently, in the NFL, known as the tush push, brotherly shove, QB sneak, whatever you want to call it. It's switched between several different names already. But the Eagles have somehow found a way to perfect that play, and they have done it tremendously well. And I don't really know how they do it, but they have been incredible with that play. The Eagles have. I mean, I don't know if I've ever really seen a team stop it. Just nobody can. And I mean, it helps to have a quarterback who has tree trunks for legs and has one of the best offensive lines as well. But the Eagles, my goodness, they do a fantastic job with that. And they've been outstanding with that play. But the Dallas Cowboys, they don't have that, and the offense is not as good as I think Dallas was maybe hoping. I know they have a lot of points here, but this is kind of inflated from some big games that they've had. They absolutely obliterated the Giants. They absolutely obliterated the Rams. They've had some games that kind of inflated those. Yeah, excuse me, and kind of inflated those numbers. You know, But overall, Dallas, I still think has a really good team. I mean, their defense is again one of the best in the league. They're really stinking good on defense. The only issue I think has got to be the offensive end because look, Dak Prescott is not a bad quarterback, but his problem is he's been hurt too much. The injuries I think is starting to really catch up to him now. I mean, at this point, I think Prescott's getting close to 30. I think he's like 29-ish. Oh no, he is 30. So he's already 30 years old. He's had so many broken like ankles, broken legs. I think he's torn a couple things as well. The injuries I think are starting to catch up to him. Sure, he's still a fine QB, but he's not nearly as fast as he used to be. And he's lost a lot of his mobility, which was what made him so good, was his ability to run, his ability to move and throw on the run. He doesn't really do that anymore. And he also really does have one good target in their entire offense that they can really count on all the time, and that's CD Lamb, of which, for whatever reason, they haven't paid yet. They should pay that guy whatever the heck he wants. He's that good. I feel like CD Lamb, I feel like, is the least talked about, is one of the least talked about great receivers in the NFL. I just, it seems like nobody talks about CD Lamb and how talented the guy is. Everybody talks about AJ Brown. Obviously, yes, he's really good. Everybody talks about Stephon Diggs. Everybody talks about Devontae Adams. Everybody talks about I'm trying to come up with somebody else, another really good receiver. I'm blanking out at the moment. Tyreek Hill. Everybody wants to talk about those guys, and then nobody remembers about. And everyone wants to talk about Jamar Chase. I didn't mention that one, obviously. But nobody wants to talk about CD Lamb, and I feel I feel like CD Lamb doesn't get the respect that he probably should. I mean, he's one of the better receivers in the league. He's certainly top 10, and honestly, in my opinion, he's pretty close to top 5. I mean, the guy was utterly fantastic at Oklahoma. And once the Cowboys traded away Amari Cooper, he's only gotten even better in that Dallas offense, and now he's the heart and soul of it. With no Zeke Elliott and now Tony Pollard becoming a new running back, and kind of just being so far. But CeeDee Lamb is the heart and soul of this offense, and they don't have a single guy in behind him. I mean, Brandon Cooks, he's just kind of an average NFL vet. He's not really much more than that. And then Michael Gallup, no, Gallup's not good. So they don't really have anything on either one of those. They don't really have. It is kind of like the Chiefs. They don't really have a secondary receiver. They don't really have a secondary target. And in terms of tight end, they drafted Luke Schoonmaker, but I mean, he hasn't really made much impact. They also have Jake Ferguson. He hasn't made much of an impact. I mean, he's kind of been okay, but I don't know if that would really be a trusted number 2 receiver. Like the Eagles, they have a trusted number 2. They have Devonta Smith. That's a trusted number 2 guy. That's someone you can count upon. The Bengals, they have a trusted number 2 guy in T. Higgins. They can count on him. That's what you need in a passing offense. You don't necessarily need 3 guys. You have 3 good receivers. That's what makes your team good. But really, to be a really good team, but you at least need 2 guys. I feel like for a quarterback, you need at least 2 guys that you can count on. Whether that's tight end or receiver, it doesn't matter. You just need 2 guys that you can count on to throw to and have them make a play whenever you need them to. I feel like if you're gonna be successful, you need at least 2 guys. If you have 3, you're in pretty good shape. If you have more than that, well, then you're just insane. But you at least need 2 guys. If you have 1, that's good, but it's gonna be tough still. And that's really what Dallas is missing. That's really what the Chiefs are missing. They're missing that number 2 guy. And for Dallas, maybe somebody can step up. For the Chiefs, maybe somebody can step up. but they both really need that second option to really catapult them further offensively. Next is the Washington Commanders. They're in a weird position because they trade away both Montez Sweat and Chase Young, but they kind of are still in a position where they can make the playoffs, but they don't really want to because they trade away both Chase Young and Montez Sweat. So I don't really know what is the I don't know what it is Washington is going to do. They just lost a close one to the Seahawks, who ended up getting the win over Washington. But I don't really know what the Commanders are going to do because they kind of are still in the playoff race. And I mean, if you can make the playoffs, why not try? But it doesn't look like they really even want to. So I don't know. It's a weird situation. And next we have the New York Giants sitting at 2-8, the bottom of the division. What an absolute flop that they have been. I don't. I mean, they might be one of the. They're probably, I think, one of the biggest disappointments in the NFL this year. I mean, look at the offense. Look at the total points offensively. That might be the lowest actually in the NFL right now. I think that actually is the lowest number. Yeah. Yeah, that's the lowest number by wow, yeah, that's the lowest number by a considerable margin. Their offense just has not been good. Daniel Jones has been a major league disappointment, and they obviously paid him a ton of money too, which doesn't bode well for Giant fans since you gave him so much money. So he hasn't looked good, and just the defense hasn't really shaped up either. They look bad. And honestly, I think last year might have legitimately been a fluke because they have looked just as bad as they had been before last year this year. So I don't really know what on earth happened to the Giants, but they have completely fallen off a cliff, and the times are looking rough once again back in New York. Of course, the Jets haven't been much better either, so really rough for New York fans. So now we go to the NFC North, and of course, you know who's coming up first. We gotta talk about the Detroit Lions, man. What a outstanding start to the season. 7-2 atop the NFC North. Unbelievable start to the year for the Detroit Lions. I couldn't have imagined the year going this well to start for the Lions. I mean, obviously we're going to talk about the team right behind them, but man, they have looked fan stinking tastic. I mean, Jared Goff is number 2 currently. Or I'm sorry, current Jared Goff is number 4 in passing yards. And in terms of this overall, the Lions are the number 2 offense in the league, right behind the Miami Dolphins. And you know they've been outstanding running the ball as well, passing, of course, like I said, they've been pretty good. So they've done it all offensively, and they look right. I mean, I'd put them right there with Miami as one of the best offenses in the league. They've shown it. I mean, you got Jahmyr Gibbs, who's been coming on strong lately now, and he's continuing to look better and better, like all the time. Then you have David Montgomery, who's also in the running room, and obviously he's looked really good as well. And then you got Amon-Ra St. Brown. You got Jameson Williams, who's made a couple of plays. He's starting to, find his way now. He's actually gained some games under his belt. You got Sam Laporta, who's looked really good. You got Josh Reynolds, who plays well. I mean, the list of options that the Lions have just goes on and on and on and on the offensive end. They have so many playmakers, and it makes it very tough for anyone who has to go up against them to shut them down. And really, the only issue for the Lions, and it is a significant issue, is the defense. The Lion defense has not looked sharp, and I mean the thing for the Lions, I think the biggest issue is probably the passing attack. Is probably the secondary, probably the passing defense, the pass defense, because still nobody can run on the Lions. We're the number 3 run defense in the league, but our problem is the passing game. Everyone just burns us. You know, they our corners have been consistently burned on plays, and I mean, obviously we lost Cam Sutton is the only healthy receiver we have that we signed, and we ended up losing C.J. Gardner Johnson to injury. We ended up losing Emmanuel Mosley after like 4 plays to another season-ending injury. So we've lost a lot of the defensive players that we signed in free agency to try and boost our defense. We pretty much have lost all of them, and even James Houston, who looked really good last year, he's out for the year. So a lot of injuries on the defensive end, and it has completely uh, you know uh, thrown the defense all over the place for the Lions. They've been completely been dismantled in the passing game as they did against the Chargers when Justin Herbert tore them apart. Problem for the Chargers was they couldn't stop the Lions either. So we ended up winning the shootout, which is a huge win for them because I pegged that as a loss, but we end up getting the win anyway. So hey, and the rest of their schedule is not really all that impressive. I mean, we got the Bears, we got Green Bay, both home games. Of course, Green Bay is the Thanksgiving game. Love to start a day of which we feast into a Thanksgiving turkey with a great Lions win. I'm trying to speak into existence. I really hope we don't lose on Thanksgiving Day to Green Bay. Like, we better not. And it's an awesome tradition, you know. I gotta love the watch the Lions every Thanksgiving afternoon. Uh, get to watch a great Lions win. Then the family comes over and you get to eat and feast, and you watch the Cowboys take on whoever it is they're playing. It's always fun. But I think we should certainly be Green Bay. And the Bears have been a train wreck. They're not looking very good. They did just beat the Panthers, but I mean Tyson Bagent, come on. We still got another game against the Bears. Then we got the road. We have a road game against the Saints. It's not necessarily the easiest schedule, but I wouldn't say it's but it's nowhere near the hardest either. I could say the Lions could easily end up being, certainly, 12-5, maybe even 13-4. We'll have to see. But what a year for Detroit. The offense has looked outstanding. The defense is a little lackluster, but maybe it improves over time. You never know. Next, we have the Minnesota Vikings, who you look now. Some people probably are not really surprised by the Vikings being 6-4 because they probably would have expected the Vikings to still be a decent team. I thought they'd fall off a cliff because they really just looked like frauds last year. They barely beat literally anyone and everyone that they played until they played like really good teams like Dallas and even Green Bay one time, and they would just get it'd get completely blasted, and it wouldn't even be a contest. And then they'd lose in the playoffs to the Giants at home. So, I was not a believer in the Vikings, and when they started the year 0-3, I'm thinking, yep, this looks like the Minnesota Vikings. But then all of a sudden they started winning. I mean, their offense had looked good at that point anyway, so it wasn't like they were like terrible on overall. Their defense had really really been bad. And as much as they had been scoring on the offensive end, they weren't able to do anything. But the even crazier thing for this Viking run, as they've now won 5 straight, so keep in mind they were 1-4, they're now 6-4. You know, the crazy thing I think for the Vikings has been the fact that Justin Jefferson got hurt, so they haven't had Justin Jefferson during really any of their wins, pretty much. During pretty much, I think he's been out actually their entire run here. I think all their wins he's been out. So he hasn't been in for any of the games that they've won. Kirk Cousins got hurt pretty early in this run, so they didn't have Kirk Cousins. They traded for Josh Dobbs. He got hurt in the middle of the run, so they had to trade for Josh Dobbs and bring him in, but he didn't know the playbook yet. So they had to play Jaron Hall, the BYU rookie, but he had get concussion, so they had to bring in Josh Dobbs. But Josh Dobbs would win against the Falcons anyway, and now would be competent and beat the Saints this week. Where in the world did Josh Dobbs come from? Because he actually looked competent with Arizona, and the Cardinals were going to bring back what's his name? They were going to bring back Kyler Murray, so they just said, yeah, sure, the Vikings want him. Yeah, go ahead, take him. So they give him to the Vikings, and now he's looking. And then with the Saints, he actually looked like a decent player again. So I don't know what to make of the Vikings, but I mean, Jordan Addison has looked fantastic, replacing. Jordan Addison has looked absolutely amazing in Justin Jefferson's place. Obviously, Justin Jefferson will come back and take the #1 spot, but Jordan Addison has proved to be a very viable receiver, and that's a nightmare. That's a real nightmare for opposing defenses to have to deal with two guys who are really good in the Minnesota offense. Not to mention them also having T.J. Hockenson. So they look good. I don't know if the defense is really that sharp, but the offense, they're playing their minds out right now. And if the miraculous run of Josh Dobbs continues, Vikings will find themselves in the playoffs, and that sounds like a weird statement, but they will. If Josh Dobbs continues to play well, they'll be in the playoffs. I don't doubt it. And next we have the Green Bay Packers sitting at 3-6. If you did not see this coming, I think you're crazy, because if anyone had watched Jordan Love play, it was obvious the guy's a bum. I'm sorry. Look, I know I'm a Lions fan, so I take a lot out on Green Bay because I can't stand Green Bay. I can't stand the Bears. I'm not the biggest fan of Minnesota, but they're the least annoying. Green Bay, though, everyone tried to hype up Jordan Love to be this, to be the second coming and borderline even of Aaron Rodgers, or be this fantastic quarterback. I'm like, look, he might be the best you're gonna get is maybe okay. He wasn't even that good at Utah State. I mean, he wasn't even that good with them. I mean, what made people think that he was going to be some stud in the NFL? Now, granted, I didn't think he would be this bad, but I don't understand where all the hype was coming from. I'm like, he's ordinary at best. I mean, he didn't show anything during his Utah State days, and really, when he had to step in a couple times for Aaron Rodgers, he didn't look good then either. So I don't understand what all the hype over him is. I never did, but really, I'm not surprised at all by this rough start for Green Bay. And then next we have the Chicago Bears sitting at 3-7. This one I am surprised by because the Bears made a lot of moves in the offseason trying to get better, trying to get a good team, trying to, get protection for Justin Fields. They made the trade with the Panthers that Carolina could get number one and get Bryce Young. Out of that, they ended up getting a good offensive tackle. They ended up getting DJ Moore. They got plenty of options to surround Justin Fields as well as some protection. And then they also ended up getting themselves a legitimate, they ended up getting themselves some legitimate players on the defensive end. So, I'm thinking, all right, well, they're getting some solid defensive players. They're getting some good offensive players. They're getting overall a decent roster. So, there's a good chance that they could end up being a good team this year. Well, who knows? We'll have to see. They're obviously trying to make it happen. So I really was interested in seeing uh, how the Bears look this year. I thought they'd be a good team. Instead, they've been a utter and complete flop and have been beyond miserable. And I'm really surprised by that. And, Fields has been hurt, so has been Tyson Bagent. And yeah, I don't know how that guy has actually looked sort of kind of competent, but he has. Um, and so yeah, here we are. Kind of surprised by it for sure. But overall, it's been a surprising year for the Bears. It has not gone how I'm sure they wanted. And I won't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Eberflus is gone well before the end of the year. Certainly by the end of the year, but I think he's gonna be gone. Period. So now we go to the NFC South, which is unsurprisingly a dogfight because nobody in this division is really all that special. Um, so starting off, we have the New Orleans Saints at 5-5. This is a team I kind of expected to win this division. They went out and signed Derek Carr, who's kind of just an ordinary quarterback. He's no superstar, but he is a serviceable QB. Of course, they paid him a crap ton of money, but he's a serviceable QB. He's a solid player, and he's better than Jameis Winston. He hasn't necessarily played that well, but he's been decent enough. The return of Alvin Kamara has done wonders for the New Orleans offenses. Alvin Kamara has played like a dog. He's been outstanding for the Saints since coming back, and the defense for the Saints has been sharp. Their defense doesn't. Last year, even their defense was pretty good. They don't really create a lot of They didn't really create turnovers last year, but they didn't give up a ton of points, and that was a big thing for them. They're a sucky fantasy defense, but they didn't give up points, and that was the thing. Teams did not really score on New Orleans, and they're still not really scoring on them this year. So I mean, they're a good team. I think the Saints are solid. At this point, I think they're still the favorites to win this division. But it's still anybody's game. So far, though, kind of what I expected New Orleans to be, just kind of an average, middle of the road team, and that's kind of exactly where they are, average, middle of the road team. And next is the Tampa Bay Bucks, who find themselves at 4-5. Now, I said at the beginning of the year, people are crapping on Tampa. People think that the Bucks are going to be horrible and they're going to get like the number one pick. I said no. I thought that I don't know. I didn't think they'd be that they'd be near 500 at this point. But I didn't think they'd be a horrible team. I thought they'd at least be okay. It'd at least be maybe like 6-11 or something. I don't remember what my prediction was, but I didn't think they'd be top 5. I don't even know about top 10 pick. I thought they because they at least had a couple decent players, but right now Tampa finds himself in the middle of the playoff race, fighting for the division, only a half a game back. Of course, they've had their bye. The Saints have not. So Tampa, they're a tough defense for sure. Their defense has looked sharp this year. Their defense has been very good. Uh, The offense has been a little lackluster. Baker Mayfield has looked kind of like, an average, ordinary guy. He's not really making great plays, but he's kind of playing more like a game manager, which is really what I think all Tampa really was looking for. Not looking for him to be a superstar, or just kind of looking for him to just be an ordinary guy, not necessarily looking for him to, you know, carry them to victories, which I think if they really wanted him to carry them to victories, I think they'd be crazy. But he's got 14 touchdowns this year to 5 picks, which is actually pretty good. That's really what you want when you're the guy, when you're the starting QB. You want to limit turnovers, and that's exactly what he's done. He's not turning it over constantly. He's taking what the defense is allowing him. He's got 2,143 yards passing, which is not terrible. Overall, he's been decent. He's done what I think Tampa wants him to do. Just be an average guy and do what needs to be done. Just make the simple play, and he has certainly made a simple play. And it's worked wonders for him. And then next we have the Atlanta Falcons, saying at 4-6. If this team actually had a viable head coach, they would be winning this division probably by a country mile. But because Arthur Smith is probably the dumbest head coach I have ever seen in NFL history, this team finds themselves at 4-6. Look, when you have Bijan Robinson, when you have Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts, I don't understand this guy's logic. You have a top 10 pick at running back at number 8 of what you just drafted this year, and then you have the number 4 pick in the draft who's a tight end and is a monster. He's a very good tight end. But instead, you want to play Jonnu Smith over that guy, even though he's a clearly incredibly talented player. And you want to play Tyler Algier, who, mind you, look, I love Tyler Algier. He is a solid running back. He has been good for Atlanta. But when you draft the number 8, when you take the number 8 pick with a running back, I think you'd want to use that guy. But they don't. Instead, they use Jonnu Smith and Tyler Algier and run Jonnu Smith tight end reverses without any other star players on the field. Just what is this guy's logic? And then he wants to go, he wants to go and talk about he doesn't care about fantasy football. That's not. I don't know how this guy has a job still. He's one of the biggest morons in the NFL, and he is absolutely ruining the NFL, or not NFL. He is absolutely ruining the Atlanta Falcons. And he also would not bench Desmond Ridder when he continued to suck over and over again. He finally started playing Taylor Heineke. It's a mess in Atlanta. They need a new head coach, and they need one fast. They need to fire Arthur Smith now. He's a train wreck. And then next we have the Carolina Panthers sitting at 1-8. Bryce Young's not played well. Adam Thielen has looked pretty good, but Bryce Young's not been good. Miles Sanders has been a flop. The defense hasn't been sharp. They're just not good. There's not really another way of putting it for Carolina. But man, Arthur Smith. If they had, it's sad because I could coach better than Arthur Smith. That's how much of an idiot the guy is. I could coach better. I haven't even done NFL coaching, and I know when you draft the number 8 guy, you want to play him. And when you have a guy who you drafted number 4 and he made the Pro Bowl, that you'd want him in there as well. And when there's a quarterback who's been sucking, you have another guy who's started before and has looked pretty good, that you play that guy. It's common sense stuff that the guy just doesn't seem to care about. And his play calling's stupid as well. He makes no sense. He shouldn't have an NFL job, and somehow he does. I don't get it. And it's not that I'm an Atlanta fan. It's just you get kind of frustrated when you see a team who, I'm an NFL fan, and I kind of feel bad for Falcon fans because Arthur Smith's just so stupid. And they have all these talented guys like Bijan Robinson, and it's partially because of fantasy, but they have guys like Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts, and I mean even bench Drake London on occasion, and Tyler Heineke would certainly play better than Desmond Ritter, but he refuses to play these guys, and then he talks about, oh well, I don't care about fantasy football. That's not the conversation here. We're talking about your stupid decisions and deciding to play guys who aren't as good as the guys you're benching. I don't get it. He does some really weird stuff. I don't know. And then there was a whole thing when Bijan Robinson was sick and didn't really end up playing. He didn't even mention anything about that. Just what a mess. Anyways, we go on to the NFC West. And then we start with the San Fran 49ers sitting at 6-3. They had that rough stretch where they lost 3 straight, and I think they went into the bye week and said, all right, this is what we're going to do to fix it, and they certainly did because they absolutely incinerated the Jags. The Jaguars were no match for them, hammering them 34-3. The Jags have been the hottest team in the NFL, really, to that point, because they've been playing incredibly well. So to win like that is pretty darn impressive. I think the Niners are back. They're obviously one of the best defenses in the NFL. They might be the best defense in the NFL. And then in terms of offense, as long as they just have game manager type guy at QB, that's all they really need. Because Christian McCaffrey is the best running back in the league. Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are stupidly talented receivers, and then you just have also sitting out there George Kittle as well. Toss it to him wherever you want. Their offense is loaded. And it's just always going to be dependent on who's the QB. Is it Brock Purdy? Is Brock Purdy the guy? Is Sam Darnold the guy? Who I don't even know what the other quarterbacks are. They probably still have Josh Johnson. They probably do. They should have like 5 quarterbacks because nobody ever decides to stay healthy. But for San Fran, it's all dependent on Brock Purdy. Will he? Okay. Will Brock Purdy look competent? Will Brock Purdy not look competent? Will they have to put in Sam Darnold? Who knows? It's really all dependent on QB play for San Fran. And next we go to the team tied with San Fran for first in the NFC West, and that is the Seattle Seahawks. I would not have expected Seattle to be tied for the division, but they sit at 6-3. I'm impressed. I've been happy with Seattle so far. They've done themselves well. I don't know if they're really a 6-3 team, but they're 6-3 nonetheless. They continue to win really close games. Geno Smith has not looked like the Geno Smith from a year ago. He still has looked okay, but he hasn't done what he's done last year. I mean, last year the guy came out of absolutely nowhere and actually looked like a competent player. And actually looked like a decent quarterback and actually looked like he could be, halfway reasonable. But, this year he hasn't necessarily done what he did from a year ago. I mean, he had 30 touchdowns to 11 picks last year. He's got 11 to 7 this year. So, obviously a lot different than before. Still, nonetheless, though, Seattle has managed to find ways to win and has continued to do so. They continue to play well. You got Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's played pretty well for them. DK Metcalf. You got Tyler Lockett. You got some solid players overall. They've all done themselves pretty well. And the Seahawks have done a decent job. They also traded for Leonard Williams, so you have him on the defensive front. I kind of forgot to talk about any of the trades, but the Seahawks are a good team. They've certainly looked good. They've certainly looked sharp, and so far so good for Seattle. Probably more so than what I think most people would have expected by now. Then next we have the LA Rams sitting at 3-6. I don't really think there's too much to say about them. They weren't expected to be good, and yeah, no surprise they aren't good. They had a little bit of an interest of a surprising start to the year, as they actually looked halfway competent, but that has quickly surpassed, and they're kind of back to being garbage again. They had a little bit of some injuries, but I mean, Puka Nakua and Tutu Atwell have kind of been a bit surprising for the Rams behind Cooper Kupp. Really, the defense doesn't really have much outside Aaron Donald. Uh, they still have Cooper Kupp. Stafford is hurt at the moment. I think he's coming back. There's not much to say about them. They're not that great. Let's move on. And then next we have the Arizona Cardinals sitting at 2-8. Kyler Murray's been out most of the year, so is Josh Dobbs for actually a good portion of the year. Until they finally just said, we're going to go with Clayton Tune. I don't really know why. But they started Clayton Tune for a game, and he looked, well, bad. And then finally, Kyler Murray came back and gave actually Arizona their second win of the year, getting the win over the Atlanta Falcons. We'll see if Kyler Murray can reel it back in and actually look like the same guy or close to the same guy that he was at his peak. Obviously, he's had a couple rough years. He's had a rough year or two. He hasn't been as good as before. And hope maybe he can get the whole cares more about or cares more about Call of Duty sting off of him. But so far for Arizona, it's kind of going as expected. I don't think many people really expected Arizona to be any good. I don't think anyone expected them to be any good. So I think this is probably exactly where uh, people thought they would be. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and yeah, we should have picks back this week for the podcast. We should be able to get the videos back out again. As I said, I just had a little bit of some busy. I had a little bit of some busyness I had to take care of, so I wasn't able to get to videos. I was working with some other stuff at the time, so. We should have those back this week, though, and picks should be back on track as always. But that's it for me, and until next time, adios, everyone.